Hello guys, and welcome to the next tutorial for Jupyter Python. So in this tutorial I'll be explaining this to you as to how we can go ahead and set up our whole environment for Jupyter Python. So make sure you download Putty in case you require to go ahead and SSH into your Ubuntu machine. If you are doing this directly on your Ubuntu machine, nothing like that, it would be pretty great. You can download the Putty by clicking over here. I think that you won't be requiring this, but still in case you wanted, I have just showed you how to go ahead and get that. So this is my Jupyter notebook. I'll just go ahead and SSH into this specific IP address to start all my necessary services. I think I'll just change a few settings. Let me just check. I'll just load it. I'll just check the font over here, 16. Okay. I'll just load this, and to the appearance I'll change the font from 10 to 16. Yeah, perfect. And I'll just save it onto this. Okay, so this looks pretty good. So this is my Ubuntu machine that you can see over here. Most of our work that we would be doing would be in this machine or via the browser. So I'll just remove this stuff that I have. Okay, so I'll just remove this tempo, and perfect. So I'll just create a simple directory over here with the name of notebooks, and I'll just go ahead and whatever things I need to do, you need to create a specific directory, basically a virtual environment kind of thing, where you would be doing all your necessary works for the IPython. So whatever we would be installing, once we have our IPython installed, all those things will be installed over here. First thing and the most important thing is basically to go ahead and install it to update your system, because without that you will have a few dependency issues which I did face previously when I was getting started with the IPython stuff. So distribution -upgrade. So this would take a really small amount of time depending upon how much internet speed you have. So my system is basically up to date except a few things here and there. In case your system is not, you would have to go ahead and install all the whole thing. Oh, okay, so I have to specify sudo over here. So it will, okay, so it requires a 17 MB of file, so I'll just type yes. So I have a decent internet connection, so it will install the necessary things. It will update any Python libraries, or let's say the Jupyter libraries that are required. Once this is done, we will wget our get_pip.py. So I just think that I'll just go over here. I'll just type wget get_pip.py, and it should. So this is basically from where you can go ahead and get this. So you can just download from over here by copying this command and executing that in your terminal. So I'll just wait till this thing gets installed. So once this is installed, we'll be installing Apache 2 as well. We'll be installing the get_pip.py. So pip can be installed in multiple ways, and people usually install through the Python setup tools, or they usually go ahead and install the pip via easy setup or easy tools. That's what they are called as. So, or easy install, that would be the more preferable way. But I usually go ahead and like download the latest version of pip through the wget_pip.py, and once that is installed, you can go ahead and directly download something from the internet through the command line as well. So once this is done, I'll just wait for a small amount of time. This is done, so I'll just clear this screen. So now I'll just type apt. I'll require the necessary dependencies, but first I'll type wget get_pip.py. So it will go and download the whole pip file, that's a Python file, onto your system into the notebook. So if I type ls and if I type cat, you can see that this is the whole thing. This is basically the public key that it contains, the hashes and the whole file. So I'll just type python. I'll type sudo -h. -h stands for, in my own current directory, get-pip.py. So as you can see, it's basically up to date. I can check the pip -- version to check the version of the pip. It's the latest one, 9.0.1. In case you get the old one, because previously it was 8.1 or 8.1.2, you need to go and upgrade that by typing pip -- upgrade. Now this is installed. I'll just delete this file because I won't be needing that. Next thing is basically you need to install the required thing, that's basically Virtualbox. In case you are using Ubuntu as a base distribution, you need to install the Virtualbox-DKMS. If you're using Ubuntu in a virtual machine and Windows as a main computer, you obviously don't need to do this. I'll just type Virtualbox-DKMS and wget curl apache 2. And so once these things are installed, these are the necessary things, and open SSL. So you need to make sure that you install all these things, because we would be requiring OpenSSL to go ahead and configure the HTTPS, the Apache 2 to go ahead and start our whole server. Okay, Virtualbox -5, I think so. Oh, sorry, it should be install. So it would be installing the latest stuff for Apache 2. So you would have to just wait for a small amount of time till it installs all the required stuff over here. Some people might argue that you don't necessarily need Apache 2 because you'll be using Python's own hosting service, but I have seen that some point of time when you go and compile multiple different things, you do require Apache 2. So I will be installing that, so that installing it doesn't necessarily create any issues. So I'll be using Apache 2 for every other thing that we would be needing. Once this is done, we will be using pip install command to install our Ipython notebook. Anaconda is something that does all of this by default on its own. So with Anaconda, you won't need to install all of these things, because by default it will install the necessary things that it would be requiring. So we'll just wait a few while till this gets installed. %, perfect. And in case you are using this on Amazon or EC2 server, the net speed would obviously be pretty good. And as you can see, it's installing the Qt by default, which is pretty important. So so it will just install all of these things over here. This may take a small amount of time to build the DKMS headers and similar things. So it's install the DKMS and everything's been done. So next thing is basically, since we have installed pip, I will be using pip to install the Jupyter notebook. So I'll type sudo -h pip install double quotes Ipython bracket notebook. It's literally known as the Ipython notebook or Jupyter notebook. So it will install everything, and that's it. So it's so your Jupyter notebook is installed over here right now, and everything's been set up. So this is the only thing that you would need to do to install the whole thing. Now you can either start your terminal by typing Ipython notebook, or you can type Jupyter notebook as well. And I will be using Jupyter notebook because if I just run directly Ipython notebook and I'll type -no-br browser. So as you can see, you are likely to want to use Jupyter notebook because Ipython notebook will be deprecated. I'll just go ahead and shut down yes. So I'll be using Jupyter notebook. Now the reason why you don't want to type -no browser, the only reason I typed in because I am using this specific SSH. If you're not using SSH, if you're directly connected to the computer by typing it manually over there on the system, then as soon as you go and type Jupyter notebook, it will open up a browser, and once it opens a browser, it will directly go ahead and give you a really good graph. So I'll just type --IP =* and I can just go over here and I'll type -no -browser. So over here, if I don't, now there's one more reason why I'm typing no IP, because IP equals to star, because if I just type this, as you can see, it started only on the local host, which means if I type in the IP address of my system 192.168.158.103:8888, okay, it won't start up. Reason being that there is nothing running on that specific port or the system. So I'll have to type -IP equals to star, means run on every other IP address. So if I go ahead and just refresh this now, I have my Ipython up and running and perfect. I am likely to use multiple different terminals, so I'll just go ahead and throw this terminal to this specific part, and I'll open another terminal over here, and I'll just throw it to this specific end, and perfect. And I'll be opening up my browser, so I'll just minimize it for the time being. So over here I'll just go ahead and I'm onto the desktop, so I'll just navigate to desktop. I'll navigate to the notebooks, and as you can see, there is nothing there into this specific directory. I'll just go ahead and create a simple file, let's say temp.py. There's nothing in that specific file. So if I open my Jupyter notebook over here, Jupyter notebook -IP equals to star, and as I said, you will have to specify -IP equals star if you want to make it public. If you don't specify -IP equals to star, it will start on the local host, that's 127.0.0.1, which is something that we don't want, since I am running this on a totally different virtual machine and I won't be able to access that. So I'll have to do some virtual network connection and then access the local host, which I don't want to. So I'll type -IP equals to star and -no browser, because the reason being that no browser is basically, it will not start up any browser by default. If you don't use -no browser, as soon as you type this command and hit enter, it will open up a browser and it will open up the local host part. So this is started. I'll just go over here and I'll just type 192.168. As you can see, my temp.py is already there. I can just click on this and I can start editing over here as and when I want. So we'll be doing this at a later point of time. So if I just go over here, you can see the connection is not secure, because the reason being that information you submit can be viewed by others. Reason being that we are using an HTTP site and we are not, there is no certificate installed over here. So if I just click over here, copy it, open a new tab and paste it. As you can see, it's HTTP. That means anyone can go and easily sniff the traffic, which is not secure. In case you have your own set of public and private keys, you can go ahead and do that. If you don't have it and if you're using this on your local host, really not an issue. But if you're doing this, let's say on a network, or let's say basically on the Amazon EC2 server, you'll probably need to go ahead and generate a set of certificates to make it secure. It can be your own self-signed certificates. The only issue with self-signed certificates is that every time you try to connect, it will give you error stating that the certificate is not recognized, and the person who has installed the certificate can go ahead and sniff your traffic. But we don't need to worry about that. Reason being that we are the ones who are installing the certificate. We will be having the private key and the public key both. So there is no one who can go ahead and sniff our traffic, since we are the one who are installing them. So, and obviously we'll be needing a password for this specific, what I would say as cluster of ours. The reason being that if you just go ahead and set up a HTTPS, anyone who knows the IP address can go ahead and directly start this Jupyter server and modify things. We don't want that. We want a secure environment with the password. So we will be taking a look as to how we can go ahead and do that. So I'll just stop this for the time being, and I'll just keep it over here. And on my other terminal, I'll just type Jupyter notebook, and I'll specify over here to go ahead and create a default configuration file -config. So it will go ahead and create a default configuration file. If it is already there, it will overwrite it with the default config. If it's not there, it will create one. So by default, when you start it for the first time, it will go ahead and create a config file. So as you can see, if I just type it again, it's installed the whole thing to the home, master, and .jupyter. Dot means basically it's a hidden folder. So I'll navigate to home, master, and .jupyter. So as you can see, this is the configuration file that we require, Jupyter_notebook_config.py. So the first thing that we would be doing is to go ahead and set up a password before we go ahead and set up any specific SSL connections. So I'll go ahead and start. So we'll be creating a hashed password. We don't want the usual password to be stored in our default format. We want it to be a really secure password. So we will be using a SHA-1 hash. So I'll start the Python 2.7, reason being that I'm using Python 2 over here, and I'll type import, and over here I'll import the necessary requirements for the Ipython from the Ipython library. From ipython.lib, import password PSSWD. Okay, let me just check. I think I typed in, oh sorry, it should be from, sorry, my bad. So make sure that you go and type in the spelling right, because even if you go and type the Python as lowercase, it won't accept it. So this is the exact method as to from how you can go and import it. So we are not actually writing any code, we are just converting our usual password to a SHA-1 encrypted password. Then you can type password, this is a variable, equals, and I'll type space PSSWD. We are basically converting something with the help of this specific module. And over here I'll write whatever password that I want to store. So let's say I want to save my password as, let's say, secret at the rate, let's say, let me take, let's secret at the rate ninja. So I'll just convert that. So this is my password over here, secret at the rate ninja. So I'll just type password. It will print out the SHA password on the screen. So I'll be using this, copying this whole password, and I will be pasting this into the Jupyter notebook config file. So I'll just edit nano Jupyter notebook config. Nano is a text editor, so it will open this file. So I will search for a specific string over here. The specific thing that I want to search for is basically the get config. Let me just check if there is get underscore config file over here. That is not there, so we'll obviously have to create one. So I'll check notebook app dot, and I think it was password. Great. As you can see, this specific portion, this c.notebook.app.password, this is the place where we will be inserting our password. So it is hashed by default. I will remove the hash. That means hash is basically means commented out. I will paste it over here, and above that I will type c space equals to get underscore config parentheses. So this will actually go ahead and make it what I would say as executable. I'll just type Control X, Shift Y, and enter. I will exit the prompt from over here because we have nothing to do over here, and I'll quickly go ahead and execute the Jupyter notebook. So as soon as I start it, I'll just go over here, I'll just refresh it. It should ask me for a password. Perfect. So I'll just type secret at the rate ninja. It should log me in perfectly.